as we know about epilepsy, what it can do and it could cause you hypo, as in reduced libido or reduced sexual behaviors, or hyper, where there's episodes of hypersexuality, right? Or it can cause you altered and weird sexual behaviors as well. Now, this is very well known. You see these things pop up, and some people put like 50-50. I think the Geschman syndrome puts that as. Now, what we're going to get to is what happened. So Muhammad, his first, 40 years of his life, 50 years of his life, he's married to one woman. He married her at 25. She was 15 years older than him. He was married to her for till the age of 50, 53, until she died. And then as soon as she dies, his uncle dies, his wife dies, the year of depression, he then marries Aisha, Hafsa, and a bunch of other women. In the last 10 years of his life, guys, this guy ended up 18 women, 15 to 18 women he was at one time married to. He then divorced some. He bragged about having sex with 11 or 9 of them in one night. He would talk about, Huris, thinking about this. His thoughts that are sexualized, his hypersexuality showed up in the Quran. Why do we have insane amount of Huri talk? Big guys, perky tits Huris. In Surah Yasin, in the tafsir, come up that the yawma fi shughlan fakihun, or something, that the people of Jannah will be enjoying themselves. The tafsirs of that say they'll be enjoying themselves deflowering virgins. You see this catastrophic, patently obvious hypersexuality in the literature, and there's no hiding from it. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll see how Muhammad was definitely showing classic hypersexual behaviors, changes in sexual behaviors associated with his type of epilepsy. With that said, we're going to have Dr. Abbas explain it first.
And all of men, when they get older, when they get to 50, the sexuality gradually becomes just a burden. And then it gets to a point in later ages that it is a burden. And he did not get married until he was 25.
Right.
If he had hypersexuality, it would have been okay for him
as a
young man in there to do it. Because he was a prudent person, he waited to get married in a proper way, which he did, and got him the things that he wanted, as an intelligent person would do. And
right.
He was that. So now, suddenly you see a person at that age who is supposed to, with all of these problems and so on, to go down, especially after losing Khadija, which was such a big thing for him.
Yeah, it's a big loss for him.
He got married to 2 of them at the same time.
Right.
Okay. Same year.
Right.
I'm not sure about this. You know the dates better. Was that in the year of Hosn?
Yes, it was right after Am al-Hazn. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
In the same year.
Okay. That's the year of depression.
Right.
In year of depression.
Right.
Getting married to 2 people
right.
at the age of 50 for a person who did not get married until 25 because he wanted to do it the right way.
Right.
Totally abnormal behavior. It shows just how I was saying that the stimulation of that part of the brain causes that the person does not have control over
his sexuality
senses. They begin to lose the control over their instincts.
Have you seen patients with this sickness and they changed in their sexual life?
It always happens, but see, now it's not 1500 years ago. What we do most of the time is that when you think the person is having seizures, you put him on medication, seizure medicine, and it always works the other way around. So the problem that we have is that they have hypersexuality most of the time.
Right.
We don't see hypersexuality because of the medicines. But the issue that there is a significant change in sexual behavior is another stamp.
Wow. So when you have an expert tell you that that's totally abnormal behavior and that his sexual changes were abnormal, and he says it's a stamp. His sexual behaviors are stamped to prove the argument that he probably was suffering from epilepsy. Yeah, why would you marry two women the year of depression? And it seems like the depression triggered him. Another interesting point is he's saying, why do we see hyposexuality in patients today? Mostly is because they're on seizure medication, anticonvulsants. That means their libidos are low. So that's one of the reasons why. Whereas back in the day of medicines now there, you'll see like it's kind of like a up and down, altered sexuality, hypo and hyper can both come up. And we see that with Muhammad. But yeah, that is very interesting that he waited till the age of 50. And after 50, he marries 18 women. That is, like he said, totally abnormal behavior. And one thing I want to point out is even if he had hypersexuality before 50, because because he wasn't in a position of power, he didn't have access to women to use them for his hypersexuality. Because when in Medina he got there, he then used literally the words to marry more than 4 wives, and there's a verse in Surah Sab, any believing woman gives them to you, you can take them. And Aisha said, your Lord hastens to fulfill your desires, right? So there's that aspect to the argument as well, that as when Muhammad got control, he started exercising that. Right on. So next slide we're gonna go to is gonna get
So,
to.
yeah, I just want to say thank you to Dude Abidis for the 10 British pounds donation. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
And we're going to try to do that this time going forward as well. This time is better for me as well. And we're going to try to see if we can do it during the day so we can get more people. There's a lot more people, a lot more subscribers awake at this time from other parts of the world. So we'll try our best to keep going at this time. Okay, so next slide I will put up.
Right on. So who says Muhammad married 15 to 18 women in the last years of his life? On the left side, we see a history of Al-Tabari. I think it's volume 8 or volume 9. He says, reports about the messenger of God's wives, those who survived him, those who left him. And he says, my father reported to me that the messenger of God married 15 women and consummated his marriage with 13. He combined 11 at a time and left behind 9. On the right side, we see Sirah ibn Kathir mention, messenger of God married 15 women, right? And then in the bottom, he brings another narration, contracted marriage with 18 women. So think about this. From the ages of 53 to 63, in 10 years, this guy married, 18 women. Now think about this. Rayhana, Safiya, Juwayriya, those were the women that his husbands he'd kill and then marry them. Then there's Aisha, the little child one. When you start thinking about what this guy was doing, then it's his adopted son's wife. Altered, weird sexual behaviors. Sorry, you're muted, Samir.
Yep. Nope, it's all good. I don't have anything to add yet.
Okay, so what's one thing that's very interesting? Now, next slide, Tabari brings up another interesting thing. The above is reported on the authority of Al-Kalbi. So it says, Al-Khazraj approached the Prophet while his back was to the sun and clapped him on his shoulder. He asked who it was, and she replied, I am the daughter of one who competes with the wind. I am Layla bint al-Khatim. I have come to offer myself in marriage to you, so marry me. He replied, I accept. She went back to her people and said that the messenger of God had married her. They said, what a bad thing you have done. You are a self-respecting woman, but the Prophet is a womanizer. Seek an annulment from him. She went back to the Prophet and asked him to revoke the marriage, and he complied with her request. This is a very interesting narration. You can talk about its authenticity, whatnot, but keeping in line with the other ones, it's pretty interesting that 18 to 15 women in the last 10 years of his life being called a womanizer is pretty clear. Like, they're not missing the mark. They're pretty accurate in that description. Now, the next one.
And it's interesting that, we have a perfectly good explanation for this, as Dr. Abbas was saying, that this is not just random. This is not midlife crisis. this fits in well with the theory we're bringing forward, right?
It's abnormal sexual behavior.
Mhm.
So now here's something that even Mufti Abu Lais brought up in his streams, and he was very mad about this too. Because this is a narration where Muhammad went to a woman and tried to touch her without her consent, right? And she called him, she said, Auzu Billah or something, and seek refuge from Muhammad. So we went out with the Prophet to a garden called Al-Shat till we reached the walls between which he sat down. Now Jaunia, a lady from Bani Jaun, had been brought and lodged in a house in a date palm garden in the home of Umayma bint An-Nuaym, and her vet nurse was with her. When the Prophet entered upon her, he said, "Give me yourself in marriage as a gift." She said, "Can a princess give herself in marriage to an ordinary man?" So she's calling the Prophet some random ordinary guy, and she's saying that I'm a princess. Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
But then the Prophet raised his hand to pat her so that she might become tranquil. When a woman touches you, when a woman tells you, I don't want to marry you, your next action should not be to try to touch her to calm her down. That's buddy trying to sexually harass her.
Yeah.
To the point where the lady said, "I seek refuge with Allah from you." This is the
Yeah.
Prophet of God we're talking about, right? And in
That's
the
wild.
right side, I asked Zuhri which of the wives the Prophet sought refuge from Allah from him. He said, when the daughter of Jaun entered upon the Messenger of Allah, and he came close to her, she said, "I seek refuge with Allah from you." And then he said, "Okay, you know what? Go back. Leave me alone." And she sent her away. And that is just bizarre where like he's like going after women. And that's what the other thing we are trying to show here is like he go out of his way to get all these women. Like, what's the problem, dude? Like, chill out. You have 9, 11, 10 wives. How many? You have sex slaves. Like, how many do you need, Muhammad? Why do you need so many?
So I'm just trying to understand the context of this hadith. When he's saying, "Give me yourself in marriage as a gift," was she a slave, or this is just a random woman? She was lodged.
She has to be a free woman.
So why is he saying, "Give yourself as a gift to me"? What the hell? Like, I'm
Weird.
like, like okay, like talk about entitled. Hey, maybe that's a pickup line. Hey, babe, give yourself to me as a gift because I'm the best. Like what? It's strange. Always
Yeah.
room for another wife. Question for you, because good question. Where is it? Basically the question was what happened? Why wasn't he hypersexual in childhood? I'm trying to find it here. In his youth. What can cause this to become triggered so that
Yes.
why was it a change? Like
So
it
there could
wasn't.
be.
He was saying, okay, so actually, by the way, Dr. Abbas was saying if he was hypersexual in his childhood, then we wouldn't basically look at it so out of place when he was in his 50s. But the fact was he went from being prudish to changing to
Mhm.
being hypersexual. But what could cause it to change like that?
So again, like he said, he mentioned depression as a trigger, his wife dying in the Amul Hazan, and after that he started marrying the women, right? So that's one
Okay.
thing. Depression and trauma could be a trigger. The other thing was that when you're young and stuff, if he was like sexual like teenagers are, it would be normal behavior. It wouldn't be out of
Yeah.
ordinary. Plus, like if you do have seizures and stuff, you can get, like he said, hyper and hypo. Another thing was if Muhammad was an orphan in the society, he was a shepherd and whatnot, he wasn't very well respected, and he was turned down by, I believe, one of his cousins for marriage before Khadija, right? So it's not like he didn't try. It's just that he wasn't in a position of power to be able to get something, right? When he
That's
did
true.
get to Medina, it was like, yeah, 18 women, buddy, in the last 10 years. As soon as his first wife died, he waited not even a couple months to marry somebody else.
Mm.
Right?
I don't remember if this is correct or not. Salex T is saying, ask Gonal, didn't Dr. Ramachandran say epileptic people normally have hypersexuality when the age rises?
I don't remember exactly. It could go either way. It's
Yeah.
normally like hypo and hyper. It depends on a lot of factors. The seizure frequency. So if you have grand mal attacks, your brain's going to be just like depleted of neurotransmitters. You're going to be tired after it. So you're obviously not going to be having the urge to have sex, right? But
Mhm.
and then the medications you put on, anticonvulsants, or it could go vice versa, where the seizure is of such nature that it triggers sexual responses, which we will see too, because Muhammad does mention something very peculiar about getting revelation under the blanket of Aisha.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, we are on the next slide. This is to show you that Muhammad was actually bragging about his sexual powers at the age of, I don't even know, it would be about 60 in this, 55. This is all after 50. The 9 number, so 11. Yeah, this would be the later 2-3 years of his life. Anas bin Malik reported that the Prophet used to visit all his wives in around during the day and night, and they were 11 in number. They asked, how did the Prophet have the strength for it? We used to say the Prophet was given the strength of 30 men. And he had 9 wives. And in the bottom, Bulugh al-Mahram, he would have intercourse with his wives one after another with a single bath.
What?
The
That's
Prophet
weird.
used to go around, have sexual relations with all his wives, and one night, and he had 9 wives. Yeah, that's also not healthy to just do that. I mean, back in the day, there's promiscuity will lead to, I mean, that is a possibility. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
Where Muhammad might have sexual STDs. Leave that for another day.
Okay.
The next slide is interesting. The power of 100 porn stars. Now, what I'm trying to show you here is the projection of Muhammad's hypersexuality creeping into the theology, or the theology is forming around his hypersexuality, where he's going to get 72 wives in heaven, perky boobs for the Huris in heaven, stuff like that.
Oh,
And now you're
interesting.
seeing his delusional brain creep into Islam on its own. It's forming Islam's vision of what paradise is. The believer shall be given in paradise such and such strength and intercourse. And they're like, people are like, huh? He'll be able to do that? And then the Prophet says, yeah, he'll be given the strength of 100 men. Right?
Oh, this is again like kind of like the dog thing where he
Mhm.
can't figure it out, so he blames the dog. Now he's like basically projecting his own, I don't want to say craziness, but his own peculiar brain state onto the religion. That's a good point.
Mhm. And then in the next one, what we find as weird, bizarre stuff. So this is Surah Yasin, Surah 36, verse 55. Inna ashabul jannatil yawma fi shughulin fakihun. Indeed, today the inhabitants of paradise are busy in having fun and enjoyment, i.e., pleasures. What are those pleasures? Delighted in pleasures such as deflowering virgins. Okay, on the right side, I believe Stabri's thing, and he says those, so all the highlighted bits are like deflowering virgins, deflowering virgins. These are numerous narrations. In fact, I had a post on this too, where there's like 14 different tafsirs actually mention this. And yeah, this is just to show that it's just bizarre. I can send it to you guys. I'll link it.
I just want to remind people why we quote tafsir. So there's multiple layers in explaining these things. The first layer is primary sources, Quran and Sunnah. The second layer is, of course, tafsir, which is interpretations of those who are experts in the field at those points in time, with the understanding of the language and the scholarship. It does not mean necessarily that this is the only interpretation, but it is a well-respected Sunni tradition. You could say it like that. Like these guys. Now, does that mean that, of course, it does not mean this is exactly what the Quran says, because someone could say, well, you're strawmanning the Quran or the Hadith or whatever. But no, we're not. We're just showing you from the Islamic perspective fairly, from multiple layers. And then, of course, the last one would be not tafsirs, but would be like modern scholars. That, I mean, a tafsir is just a scholarly interpretation anyways, but these are like well-known scholars, let's just put it like that, right? Like giants of the ummah. And then, of course, the very last one would be modern scholars. So we're building a case based on multiple layers here, right? Do you want me to share that Facebook post?
Yeah, if you can. That has a lot of screenshots just to show you that this is not an anomaly. Literally every mufassir knows about this. All right. Next one, infamous verse in the Quran, which goes in line with his hypersexuality creeping in. Wakawaib atraba, which is, and full bosom maidens of equal age, full breasted mature maidens. And then Tafsir of Ibn Kathir underneath, he says, meaning wide-eyed maidens with fully developed breasts. And Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, and others have said this means round breasts, they meant by this that the breasts of these girls will be fully rounded and not sagging because they will be virgins equal in age. This on its own shows how crazy, you're muted by the way, how Islam can be formed around the delusional thinking of Muhammad's sexual idea and fantasy. Like, not everybody likes these things. Why are we so subjectively bound to Muhammad's idea of what beauty is or whatever, right?
I mean, I've already known a lot of these points, but now when you connect it to the temporal lobe epilepsy, it makes that much more sense. Yes, we all know, why is it that Muhammad mentions all of these things like honey and milk and gardens and couch. He's doing things according to his perspective, but now it's even more obvious because, I mean, let's just be real. Most men don't, they don't fantasize about having 72 women. That's
Yeah.
just weird. I mean, that's excessive. You just need, I mean, frankly speaking, one good partner. I mean, yeah, sure. There's, men are promiscuous in terms of, wanting to spread genes or whatever from a evolutionary perspective, but 72, like that's going to the,
crazy.
it's too much. It's like, what's going on there? But I mean, the Quran doesn't say 72. It doesn't say that, but yeah, it's in the traditions, and for sure the sensuality is actually something that even I'd say Christians have been criticizing, and other people of other religious traditions are.
It's
Alex, you
Islam's
just need 71.
Islam's version of paradise. Everybody will tell you that the Huri thing is just bizarre. Like 72
weird.
wives, it's weird. Sexuality is everywhere. It's hyper-sexualized. So
It's
there's hyper-sexual Jannah and
it's very materialistic, right?
Exactly.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. You made a good point. Yeah, say it again.
Hyper-sexual Jannah and hyper-torture hell.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, it is very materialistic, and that's a point too. But yeah, now that you've connected it to the TLE, that's amazing.
And then you ask, like, in terms of like what form are we gonna be there in Jannah? Like, are we gonna have the same body parts? What age? Like, it's so many variables. Are we gonna even have the same body? Sexuality, our idea of sexuality is tied to our human body right now, and hormones and stuff, right? So
it makes sense why we are the way we are. I mean, I think this is such a powerful point that evolution explains why we have anger, why we have jealousy, why we have sadness, why we behave in a tit for tat manner, why we get jealous over our partners cheating on us, and the way that men get jealous is different from the way that women get jealous. There's different manifestations and different thinking. For example, in many cultures, women will tolerate a little bit of cheating on the side because, for whatever reason, I don't want to get into that. But the point I'm trying to make is none of this makes sense in paradise. There's no genes to pass on. There's no need for, there's no reason for God to cater the rewards for men and women to be different when that's just the manifestation of my, my physical attributes that are designed for me to continue procreation of the species. Why would none of that makes sense in paradise?
Makes no sense. In fact, it seems like somebody who had no foresight or stuff, and he just created this idea of heaven. Absolutely no sense. It's so materialistic, so childishly silly and naive, and like it almost seemed like a 10-year-old can come up with that, or even a better idea than that, what heaven would be, right? But he just came up with what was available to him in the 7th century and projected that onto his gods in divine wisdom.
Okay, so yeah,
all right.
I think we said a lot about this. We'll
Yeah.
continue. Is there anything on the slide you want to? That's it, right?
No, that's it. We have lots more about Huris. We've done a whole episode about them separate. The two Abdullah shows with Jannah. We got into details of their transparent bones and stuff.
Oh yeah, we did a show on that. True.
Yeah. So if you want to watch, go refer to that. We're gonna just mention the how Muhammad got married to Aisha. Like you'd think it'd be like he liked her, but no. His delusion was that he was dreaming. He says, the Prophet said, "You have been shown to me twice in my dream. I saw you pictured on a piece of silk, and someone said to me, 'This is your wife.' When I uncovered the picture, I saw that it was yours, and I said, 'This is from Allah, it will be done.'" And he says that, he was sleeping one day, and Muhammad had a dream for a few days where this angel brought a baby that's 6 years old wrapped up in silk to Muhammad and told him that this is your wife. This is delusional and altered and weird sexuality. And then he ended up marrying her when she was the age of 6 and consummated when she was 9. And they add the additional detail she used to play with dolls. I don't know how many Arab women in Arabia in 7th century where playing with dolls was used as a description to show how mature they were. You know, like, do you find any other wives of Muhammad playing with dolls too? That's
No.
that's the thing. That's what you got to contextualize. When they mention, again, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, is to show you how childish and how young and how naive this Aisha was. And when Allah's apostle used to enter my dwelling,
Sad,
his
yeah.
friends would hide. It's just sad. Again, we've done a huge separate thing where we talked about how she might not have been of age, but even Fath al-Bari is saying in the bottom in the brackets in the description, the playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. Even Fath al-Bari is of the opinion, and so is Imam Bukhari when he explains the verse, the women that have not yet menstruated, he uses Muhammad's marriage to Aisha to show that Aisha was not yet of age. All right. But this is a
Yeah.
totally different topic. For more detail, you do watch our Scandals of Aisha special episode. This was an interesting one. Now, I remember, I believe one of our subscribers here, Black Angel, she brought up a point where can sexual triggers cause revelation and stuff? And I just did find this one interesting. Sunan Nasai, the Messenger of Allah said, do not bother me about Aisha, for by Allah, the revelation has never come to me under the blanket of any of you apart from her. And he says, and the second one, do not bother me about Aisha. So he gets revelation under the blanket of Aisha. I have read a translation of this hadith where it says he gets revelation when he wears the thobe or the clothes of Aisha. That is another weird translation, but this is just bizarre. Why would he get revelation while he's under the blanket of Aisha and not one of his other wives? So again, Aisha was his favorite wife. He used to spend more time with her. She was the youngest. Starts making more and more sense. Right on. Next slide, we're just going to quickly talk about the transparent light emitting origins. Sorry.
Do you think there was a reason why he was getting revelation under the blanket?
Yeah, so there is an idea, I believe one of our subscriber brought it up, where sexuality could trigger.
Okay.
Again, I just
Oh,
want
that's
to
what you're saying. Oh, that's what you're saying about blacking. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
it could trigger it. Again, just to show you guys, if you want to go into more detail, the kind of descriptions Muhammad gives about these virgins in Jannah is also so bizarre. It makes no sense whatsoever. The Prophet said the first batch of people will be glittering like the moon, and everyone will have 2 wives who will be so beautiful and pure and transparent that the marrow of their bones of their legs will be seen through their bones in the flesh. That's just bizarre. That's not beauty. I don't know what he's trying to get to there. And if a woman among the women,
maybe it's again something in his head, like you were saying. You don't think of this as a normal person. I mean,
exactly,
maybe something weird in his head that's why you can't understand it, is because I don't know. Like
he's got a
something
weird kink or fetish, bone
maybe
marrow fetish.
I don't know. Yeah, something weird going on in his head. That's all I can say.
And if a woman among the inhabitants of paradise were to appear to the people of earth, she would illuminate what is between the heavens and the earth, and a pleasant scent would fill up what is between them. And the scarf on her head is better than the world and what is in it. So Muhammad is so delusional. He thinks that the scarf the Huri wears is more important than the whole world and the universe. What the F is this? That's all I'm going to say. Oh, jellyfish.
Gonzo's laughing at a comment by Black Angel that says jellyfish huris. Is it possible his eyesight, like he was seeing things? Like maybe he saw people differently or something? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he saw some. I'm sure he visited Jannah, right, with the Miraj. He saw that Huri's there, and he's describing.
Okay.
Next thing we get to is the affirmation that people who say that, oh, there's no 72 wives. No, there is in the books. In fact, one's graded Hassan, and then the other Sahih by Al-Albani there. He's married to 72 wives along Hurul Ain of paradise with large dark eyes at the right one. Again, we don't need these many wives. In fact, one Huri can have the power of 72 Huris too, you know? Like, why do you have to have 72 of them in number?
Especially because in paradise you don't get tired of anything, so why would you need variety?
Exactly.
It's just weird, right?
Now, what's weird is coming up. Muhammad's hypersexuality was of another level. When you go to the next slide, this guy was marrying dead women.
What?
Right up. Yeah, there are narrations.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, is it authentically reported that the Prophet will marry Maryam and Asiya? Narrated through a number of chains. Some scholars, such as Al Hakim, consider to be Sahih. Other scholars don't. Ibn Asakir narrates the hadith in his famous book, but others don't. Now, interesting thing here, and this is going to tie back into something we've been talking about throughout, and it ties up to the authenticity of the Islamic corpus. One thing to mention is that although a hadith may be classified as being weak due to the chain of narrators, weakness does not mean that it is false and untrue. So even if we were to take the position that the hadiths are weak, that weakening of the narration does not negate that the reality of what was mentioned possibly being true. And this is something that I'd let the scholars, Sheikh Rami Nisur made the point, and I just read what he said, and that's important because weak hadith, according to what Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, is like they're not like a fail, they're like B plus grade, and you know Hassan hadith are like A, and the Sahih like A plus, and he came up with this idea, especially when they're being corroborating each other in a number of chains, and then we have other scholars considering it too. But what we want to learn here is why is Muhammad trying to marry dead women? Like he's kind of like he's a king of the kings. He's gonna marry all the prophets' wives after they die or something like.
Yeah, and apparently this caused some interfaith conflict. You know, some people find this incredibly offensive to say that
Yeah.
Muhammad is going to marry, marry the mother of God or the mother of Jesus, anyways, right?
The next thing Muslims are gonna be like use the B theory of time. Muhammad is the father of Jesus or something.